Hi guys, this is going to be a pretty informal discussion. I don't have time to script anything, and I just don't have a lot of time in general. But I've been meaning to talk about something for quite a while, namely the pathology of female projection, psychological projection, projection bias, if you will. And normally I like to make recourse to evolutionary psychology and talk about the past. But as this is an informal video, I'm just going to be talking about uh, the present psychological projection, modern psychology. So, what exactly is psychological projection? Well, usually it's a form of defense mechanism when a person feels that attributes or ideas or perhaps even actions on his or her part are undesirable. That person will project those negative qualities out onto someone else, attributing those qualities to the other person in an effort to avoid shame or feeling bad about oneself, something along those lines. That's usually how projection works. And if you look at the way the human female interacts with the male, it's quite interesting because, from a purely modern point of view, or rather an isolated perspective, independent of evolutionary psychology and our evolution, it's quite fascinating to observe that the vast majority of traits desired in a male by a female are traits that the female herself almost in their entirety lacks, or it could be actions. Let's start with commitment. Now, we all know, and we've heard very often, that men are so called commitment phobes. They don't want to enter in relationships, they don't want to bind themselves to anyone. But as we know by now, we know very, very well by now, there is a vast amount, mountains of evidence to suggest quite the opposite, that women are the commitment phobes. We see this in divorce rates. We see this in their higher frequency of cheating and so on and so forth. So it's very interesting that the female, when if we actually look at the evidence, it accuses men of being commitment phobes. We know, for example, that men are much more willing to forego sexual variety, which is the male preference, in an effort to maintain a committed relationship. Women don't really know what commitment is, or they. When a woman talks about commitment, they mean commitment for the time being until she finds something better. When man talks about commitment, it's a big deal. I think that's part of the nature of this particular psychological projection on the part of the female. Females being pretty solipsistic and only can think from their own perspective. So if a male is truly weighing the pros and cons of a commitment, long-term marriage, something along those lines, he really is thinking about long-term, till death do we part, and all that jazz. The female, on the other hand, never thinks long. She thinks, well, until I find something better, at least on a subconscious level. And I think that's the origin, or one of the origins of this whole, oh, he's a commitment phobe. But it is very interesting because we do have the data, we have statistics, evidence that suggests quite the opposite, that women are the commitment phobes, not men. And it's just one of a long list of psychological projections, in my observation, that the female projects onto the male. What about weakness? Now, if there's anything that women hate in a man, there's anything, it's got to be weakness. Women despise weakness in men. Not weak men per se, but displays of weakness. Fallibility. Women hate that. And why? Well, are women themselves particularly strong? No. Much of this, what women desire, just seems to be a kind of mirror reflection of what they themselves lack. And it seems to me that when a female encounters, say, weakness in a male, that she is looking at the reflection in the mirror, and that causes her great feelings of shame. That's one of the reasons why they despise weakness. It's a self-reflection, in essence. They see their own weakness when a male displays weakness. Of course, men in general, as we know, don't have any right to be weak or to fail or to falter. That would mean that they were human beings, and since men are human doings, automatons, machines of labor, beasts of burden, uh, they're not allowed to show any weakness or have any weakness for that matter. That's part of the bigger picture. But on a microcosmic scale, on a microscopic scale, I really do believe that the female sees such qualities as weakness in men as a reflection of herself, and she just simply doesn't have the capacity to come to terms with that. That's why she despises it so much. That's why she really hates weakness in men. Can't stand, I mean, women can't stand weakness in men. They can't stand weak men in general. Same thing with security. Women want to feel secure, and one of the reasons why is because they're so riddled with insecurity. If a man, God's forbid, a man feels insecurity, some uh, momentary faltering, where he has doubts about his ability to complete a task, that will be held against him, of course. Uh, he's not allowed to feel that have that feeling of insecurity. The female, on the other hand, I mean, that females are just riddled from the very essence, in their very essence, with insecurity. Another projection, another mirror reflection of what they themselves lack, and of course, it's criticized in men when they show that. And men, being human beings in actuality, will occasionally feel insecure about certain things. And the list goes on and on. It's not. I mean, you could list 20 other things, but the point is that all the desirable attributes in a male, those attributes desired by a female in a male, they really amount to a kind of psychological projection bias, a defense mechanism on the part of the female not to face her own weaknesses, her own insecurities, her own lack of commitment. It's just fascinating to me that, and so patently obvious in so many ways, that that's really what's going on an interpersonal basic level. Women don't like to be reminded of what they themselves lack. Of course, it doesn't help that the society and the world around us caters to that. Uh, Men, generally speaking, do possess these qualities in greater abundance than females, but those are hard won. Those qualities, there you have to fight for them. Uh, we as men, we are not infallible. We do fail and make mistakes, and perhaps we have greater feelings of security, and perhaps we are, well, less weak, or not as weak as women are. But we have to struggle to attain that. Of course, women don't have to struggle for anything. The world essentially lies at their feet and is willing to accommodate their every wish. But I say this and I mention this because should you ever, for whatever reason, end up in a conversation with a with a female about these things, I think it could be quite on point to ask that female quite simply, well, why do you require that he be completely sure of himself and never show any weakness when you yourself are completely unsure of yourself and are just chock-a-block full of weakness? I think if you do happen to have one of these odd conversations, which has happened to me on occasion with well, work colleagues of all things, it could be an interesting conversation with interesting results, to say the least. But yeah, I just wanted to mention this. It's quite interesting that all the qualities, and patently obvious for that matter as well, that men that women seek in men are qualities they themselves lack, which of course makes sense, but they, the level of contempt they have for any man who displays any doubts, any weakness, any failings, it's rather incredible. Never mind the fact that it's laughable when they talk about commitment. We all know how committed women are. Women are, of course, committed to themselves. They're not very much committed to relationships or the men in those relationships. And those of you who watch my video on lesbian relationships, women aren't even committed to other women in same-sex relationships. So I don't remember the divorce rate doubles when two women are involved. Doubles what the heterosexual rate is. Anyway, just wanted to make a brief informal video on that, just something, food for thought. And in case you do ever have an encounter, it's something to think about and something you might want to mention. That everything with regards to the qualities women seek in men is essentially self-projection, kind of, it's just a defense mechanism. And yes, they hate being reminded of that. They love shooting down men who may occasionally display some of these qualities that they themselves are so full of. But try reminding them next time. Could have some interesting results there. Anyway, I have to take off now, and like I said, didn't have a lot of time. And by the way, my real life is quite turbulent these days. I don't have time to make very frequent whip videos, but they will be forthcoming, and I'm hoping. It's a rough guesstimate. Maybe in a month's time, then I'll be able to be more productive with regards to videos again. But that's just a really haphazard guess. So anyway, but thanks for bearing with me. And let me just say finally that I always appreciate the support I receive on this channel. I mean, in terms of comments and views. And I really feel, because of some of the comments and messages I have received, that I'm doing something good for the benefit of men, individual men. That is my goal, and I'll reaffirm that. I mean, this channel is all about helping individual men, and that's really what I care about at the end of the day. I still believe that if we are going to smash the system and change things, it's going to happen on an individual basis. The less men buy into relationships and marriage and all the rest of the nonsense, the less cannon fodder there is, less meat there is for the meat grinder. The legal stuff, well, it's all well and good, but at the end of the day, I do believe that the system is irrevocably, irretrievably broken, and because of that, I don't think there's much that can be done, except on a microscopic level, men going their own way, refusing to enter into marriage and possibly relationships. That will deprive women of their means of exploitation, but also the state of its means of exploitation. In the long run, well, it could have some pretty disastrous effects, but we're heading there anyway, regardless. And more men are waking up. I'm fortunate in my gaming. I talk to guys from all over the world, in Australia, France, Asia, and South America, and men are waking up. Men, they don't even know about the men's rights movement. They don't even know about my channel, but they are waking up one by one, and they're making their own observations, and they're coming to astoundingly similar conclusions. Of course, it shouldn't shock anyone. I mean, the things we talk about, the observations that we make, they're generally based on female universals or female universal behavior. It's not surprising. And that's very encouraging to know that there are other men out there that are waking up without even having to sort of unplug themselves from the matrix, as it were. So that's good. Anyway, yeah, I do have to go, but thanks for the watch, and I'll see you guys hopefully in the not too distant future. Everyone take care, and I really do appreciate all of you, and wish you all the best. Bye bye.